evening, friends, and welcome to the Spiritual Side of Virginia. It's so good to be with all of you today. We are going to start by reading a message from the book Living Spring, psychographed by the Spirit Emmanuel through the blessed hands of the medium Chico Xavier. The mentor selected message number 67 for us today, Inner Renewal. Be renewed in the spirit of your minds. Human beings have used reasoning for many centuries, hitting rules that are practically unchanging and comparing external events according to old processes of observation. They run their physical lives, making great transformations in the area of fundamental organic procedures. And they use speech like someone using the elements that are indispensable for building a construction of stone, sand, and lime. Within the arena of exterior nature per se, modifications in any aspect of it have been minimal, except for the great progress made related to the techniques of science and industry. In the arena of the sentiments, however, the changes have been profound. Amongst highly educated peoples, no one tolerates the slavery of their fellow beings. No one plays with others' lives with impunity, and no one applauds systematic and deliberate cruelty as they used to. Through the heart, the ideal of humanity has been purifying the mind in all climes of the planet. The home and the school, the place of worship and the hospital, the institutions of social security and charity are creations of sensibility and not of calculation. Workers may display lofty qualities of intelligence and skill, but if they are not devoted to their work, they will continue to be merely conscious, repetitive pieces of equipment, just as the stomach has been a machine of digestion for millennia. Wow. Only through inner renewal does the soul progress on the road to a perfect life. Before Christ, thousands of men and women died on crosses. However, the Master's cross became an indistinguishable light due to the quality of sentiment with which the crucified one handed himself over to death, thus influencing the quality of sentiment of nations and centuries. Growing in the goodness and understanding means extending the vision and sanctifying the objectives of society. Jesus came to us to teach us that love, more than anything else, is the way to the abundant life. Have you lived amidst pain, affliction, darkness, or infirmity? Then renew your sentiments in accordance with the standards of the gospel, and you will see the divine purpose of life acting everywhere with justice and mercy, wisdom and understanding.
Let us prepare ourselves for prayer. We thank you, dear God, loving spirits, spirit doctors, nurses, and therapists, spirit teachers, educators of the world. We bow our heads to you in reverence to your dedication to our progress. We would like to open ourselves to rearrange emotions, transforming thoughts and feelings for our own progress. Before we begin this therapeutic session, we would like to emanate thoughts of kindness, understanding, and healing to everyone who has their names in the book of prayer. May they feel helping hands coming their way. Solutions and resolutions for their lives. We trust, dear Lord, that your team of love is enveloping everyone with kindness, hope, and joy of living. Under your guidance and protection, we want to thank you for granting us the permission to be here in this hour, and so be it. So, let's do this. Okay, let's just hold on. Yes, take it easy. Let's see. Yes, okay. So we are taking this journey together, learning. Me too. So this course, as we've told last week, comes as a translation and adaptation, of course, to our reality, to our moment, as a course of the spiritual being done by Sally Regina George, a spiritist psychologist, who's also an educator of the Professor Dietrich Marcianuffu's method that was received by Alzira Bessa in Sacramento, Minas Gerais. This is just a reference for us. There are books about it, but we are bringing the various slides. Carrie's kindly translating, we are revising, decorating, and sharing. But because our reality here is different from the way the course is actually, the course that we're participating in Portuguese comes from a group of 100 people who are directly connected to Celia, who are spiritist practitioners, etc. When we bring to our setting, we know we are at different levels of our studies in spiritism, so we want to boost this leveling so we can go deeper. So according to Mentor Joseph, a strategy we're going to use is reading this book. So we would recommend that everyone reads this book. They have in Kindle format, but we also have in the bookstore. We have 2 here, and we have a few more coming next week for you if you want the materials. But this book is very interesting because some of the people, all the people who were in 50 years later, are here reincarnated. How many centuries? More than 16 centuries later. They're here. And then you see, oh my gosh, they progress somewhat, but not so much. Some are repeating the same mistakes. Can you believe it? And what about us? So we want to read this book to identify what we're going to see theoretically. I'm going to give you some examples today. Because this book, as Emilio says, he says in the preface, this is a book of feeling for those who appreciate the human experience through the heart. And the description of Emilio is such that he names the emotions that they are feeling, unlike other books he wrote. So we can almost see ourselves in the characters and see exactly what this course aims at, identifying this in us. So if we can identify in the characters of the book, we will more likely identify in us, because we see almost like a mirror. Oh, this happens today. What about me? Oh, now I can understand, for example, my torments. So we would recommend everybody reading, no matter how, you just go reading. We're not going to say chapter 1, 2, 3, but if you read, you will know what we're going to talk about. Okay? So the first part of this study is slides, text, inevitably, because we need to bring the literature to make us understand a new way of seeing ourselves. Then we stop, say goodbye to the friends on the internet and say, go reflect, because now we're going to reflect. And that's where we're going to begin with the characters of the books. But we're not going to allow comments, okay? The second part is not about I comment. It's a question. Only questions. You ask a question, and we talk about the question. We're not going to comment. It's about questions, so we can all go deeper. Okay? That's the strategy for us. So, ready? Are you ready for the boot camp? Because it's gonna be CrossFit of the soul today. Prepare to sweat. Because just looking at the slides and preparing them, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already sweating. Right, Carol? Translating, revising, etc. It's like, maybe I should erase something you just said. I said, this is just repetitive sometimes. Whoever repetition, Vanessa. I said, oh, I forgot. Me.
No, just adding, I think there's a radio novella.
Yeah. For those who listen in Portuguese, if you go to YouTube, you can. The only difference is that it's fantastic. I agree with you. But you need to read too, because there we miss the description of what we're talking about. But you can get to know the story. I agree. Faster, listen to it, but if you can read it. All right? We're going to begin with the one and only. Who is he? Okay. Who is he? Yes. So Jesus, he said, truly, truly I say to you, unless one is born again, one cannot see the kingdom of God. What does that mean? We need to reincarnate. That's why we're going to talk about a passage that is in the Gospel according to Spirit that talks about the need for incarnation. The passage of spirits through corporeal life is necessary so that they may accomplish, with the help of physical action, the designs whose execution God has entrusted to them. So a good thing to do is this. Every day say, I didn't create myself. God created me. So if I have bills to pay, I send to him. Because it's his idea, I leave. Now he needs to pay the bills, right?
Right.
What is this? You create me and now I pay the bills? I'm joking. No, but think about it. You think your problem is yours, it's God's too. So if we have a bill to pay, ask our God, how do I pay this? Because you created me. Now I need to figure this out. You have infinite intelligence. Share a little more. And I'm joking, but it's true. The good spirits. How many spirits love us? Many. Many are in the afterlife, cheering for us, helping us, encouraging us. And we are here to do what God wants us to do. So that's our daily quest. Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Like daily. Sometimes God wants us to talk to this person at work. Listen to them. We don't. Because we think God wants us to go to Africa, help children in Africa. And he said, no, the Africa is in front of you. It's your boss. Starving. Spiritually starving. You should pray for your boss. Or for your relative. Or for have good thoughts about your family, about your co-workers, or the people who are in a restaurant. If you have worked in a restaurant, I have not in the US. I worked in a restaurant in Italy. It's a little different. Here, there's more family business. Here is everyone for the business, right? So who is actually working? 10,000 different people. Many people who are under drug addiction, so common. Drug addiction, they use drugs and cook. They use drugs and serve the tables. No wonder often we go to restaurants and it's a little hectic, you don't feel well. That's the behind the scenes of the kitchen. So we need to pray when we go to the restaurant, right? So God, being supremely just, must regard all his children equally. That is why he gives all of them the same starting point, the same aptitude, abilities, the same obligations to fulfill, and the same freedom to act. He's saying same in the long run of immortality, not one reincarnation, because it wouldn't be the same. We're not blind, we can see. So that's one life. But one life is not enough. So you know, I know, we need more than one. That's why we reincarnate. That's all it is. If people say, don't believe in reincarnation, that's crazy, because they don't want to be a cow. That's not what we're talking about. No, because people think they're going to be a frog, a cow, a dog, a cat, and they're like, maybe some people want to be a dog because they're so spoiled, right? Paul and Tony's cats are children. They're competing with Barbara, who has more attention, right? Because they are children of theirs equally now, right? They do that, right? You came first, the firstborn, you have more rights, but some of them don't agree. No. Right. But think about it. Think about it. We need to talk about this to people because that's not what we mean reincarnation. Human is reincarnated as human. But some people don't want to reincarnate in that nationality or another race, and that's why they refuse it. Because they're like, no, it can't exist because I'm not going to reincarnate there or in this way. So that's why many people do not need it. So who talked about it as well? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It's important for us in the United States to know because he greatly influenced the spiritualist movement in the US. In England, you know, Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. His son died and he was distraught. And he got to know irrefutable news from the beyond from his son. That's how he became a spiritualist. But he devoted himself, wrote books that we have in our library, for those who help you remember. And there, in the history of spiritualism, he talks about French spiritualism, Kardec. And he says the difference between the British and the French spiritism, because he says one of the main things is that people here in England, they have a relationship with India, which was a colony. They said they refuse to believe that they're going to reincarnate there. So that's why many of the British, even the spiritualists, they refuse to accept reincarnation. And did you know, I got to know that in 1926, Leon Denis was the president of a certain spiritist society, and he organized with other fellows, Gabriel Delany and others, a spiritist meeting, like a congress in Paris, and Arthur Conan Doyle was one of the guest speakers.
Oh, wow.
So they knew each other. Yeah, I read it. Yes, it did. So they're all friends. So we need to understand why some people, they don't want to accept the obvious. Even scientific findings here at the University of Virginia, it's a fact already. Scientific papers proved it. Reincarnation exists. So people are still like, oh, no. Why? Afraid, prejudices, fear and prejudice, besides real ignorance. So it's good for us to know and ask, why don't you believe? If people talk about it, we're not going to talk about it with people that we want to talk about it. But the ones who do, like, tell me why. Why don't you think it's logical? If we listen to them, we're going to get to know. But our reincarnation is for profound transformations. But what do we want? Easy breezy, lemon squeeze. We want the comfort zone. We reincarnate to find where we can be comfortable. You know, like dogs and cats, they find their comfort space and they arrange it. That's how we are. And we fail. We're supposed to begin this life in a way and end in a different way. Be transformed, be different. To the point that people who knew us at the beginning of our reincarnation, at the end, they're like, are you the same person? If people who knew us before say, man, you've changed, we're progressing. They say, oh, you're all the same. Oh my gosh. Unless it's a good thing. We don't want to change that. We're destined as children of God to walk towards perfection in the direction of spiritual progress. Today, Celia was saying in the gospel in the morning, why does Jesus call us? To be better, to be perfect. Why? For our happiness. I won't be truly happy until I am perfect. Perfect not in the sense of being robotic, distant. No, perfect means loving, kind, charitable, and intelligent at the same time, everything. So, the main objective of our existence on earth is to adjust ourselves to the divine laws, building moral balance in our relationships. Just this is everything. Okay, dissect. Is to adjust ourselves to the divine laws. Question, what are the divine laws? Go to the Spirit's book, the book in blue, part 3, divine laws. Then laws. Read questions and answers. Just as a teaser. Because the book seems like too much. Put on a Kindle, you won't see how thick it is. You won't be afraid about its thickness. Right? Now, think about it. Open. Law of preservation. Look how interesting it is. If you think of self-defense, is it right or wrong? We talked about it here. Is the self-preservation instinct a law of nature? Absolutely. All living beings possess it, regardless of their degree of intelligence. God is so perfect that created us with an inner system to protect ourselves. There's a thunderstorm, right? We've got dogs, some of them super afraid. They're under the, right? Under the desk, the tables, they're like Loopy now. She's under the desk.
Yeah.
Because she's afraid of the thunderstorm. Because it's telling her. She's not going to be outside, but she wants to protect herself because she instinctively, it's pre-programmed to protect herself. So don't feel guilty if you, in an emergency, you ran for your life. Because you're supposed to save yourself. We're supposed to save ourselves from trouble. When people are taking too many risks, their self-preservation instinct is not calibrated. It's like an instrument, they need to calibrate. Okay? When we see people self-inflicting injuries, their self-preservation needs calibration. Because it's off. We're made to protect ourselves. And to build moral values in our relationships. Do we ever think about this? Who teaches us that? Nobody. But Spiritism and the Course of Spiritual Being, because it says we are here to harmonize ourselves to the laws of God at every minute of our lives. There's no place, no time, no nothing where we are not under this proposal, and this will happen in relationships. So we can't escape relationships. The best way is to look at them and work with them. Our avoidant feature needs to turn off. So, talking about reincarnatory plan, in the book Missionaries of the Light, bear with me, okay? It's just one paragraph. It's in chapter 12 of the book. He says, a large percentage of reincarnations follow standardized format for everybody in cases involving reincarnation for purely evolutionary purposes. However, another percentage, which is smaller, does not follow the same plan. As the soul grows in learning and knowledge, and thus in responsibility, the individual reincarnation process becomes more complex, an exception to the general rule, as it is logical. Considering this fact, the most elevated spirit colonies have special services for the reincarnation of their workers and missionaries. I can secure you that for us who are involved with the commitment of sharing spiritism, disseminating it, make no mistake, our reincarnation are in this category because we're workers. We're very few. In this world of almost 8 billion people, how many spiritists do we have? Only in Brazil, they say 2 million. That's what they say. Of course, it could be more. Only 2 million. Majority says they are something else. Christian, though. And of those, let's say in an optimistic way, on Earth we have 3 million spiritists, or 8 million spiritists, or 8 billion. Are those people who work in the spiritist dissemination? No. Of those, how many actually commit themselves to helping disseminate? 10%. That's real statistics based on research done by spiritists in Brazil. 10%. 10% of the people in spiritist centers are actually workers, practitioners, etc. 10%. So 10% of these 2 million in Brazil, those are math. Now, of these 10% in the world, let's say, how many of them do this in English? Think about it. Very few. And you think we're here just because we found a center? No. We had our reincarnations planned. We wanted the commitment, and now we're here. It's up to us to realize it and go. So that's why we're going to talk about this awareness and our choice. Last week we talked about decision, time of decision, and we come back to that moment of a choice. When we do things by instinct, that's not what we're calling choice. Choice for us here is something that comes out of discernment. We needed to be aware and then make a choice. So the exercise of free will activates our conscience because we have to say, what do I do? Our dogs and cats, they don't think. They already know. They know way before even the stimulus is ahead of them. There is a mechanism that they can almost foresee what's happening next. So because the perception is beyond, it's very instinctive. Instinct is perfect. It never fails. But our choices can fail us. So, the spirit, us, taking responsibility for our actions, we access conscience. And then what happens next? Assessing all the more freely our conscience, the spirit establishes a life guided by the divine laws. If one does not consult their conscience, the moving force behind their actions will be the prior facet of their current personality, what we call conditioning. So if, I'll give an example from the book Renunciation, okay? If you read 50 years later, Celia's parents and Alcione's parents, they are all the same. Celia is Alcione, her parents are here, Cirilo and Madalena. Cirilo has a cousin named Susana. Madalena has a cousin named Antero, who are Susana and Antero. They are Claudio Sabina, and that's why I need to remember. It's easy for us to talk about the cases in the book than talk about ourselves, right? So let's talk about them first. So then look, and then we have Claudio Sabina's husband. He loves the other woman, Celia's mother. Claudia Sabina is married to this guy, but she loves Celia's father. Now, these people who used to be troublemakers, trying to steal the other spouse, now they are the cousins. They reincarnated Susana and Antero, the cousins, not to repeat the mistake of stealing somebody else's partner. And this is the scene at the beginning of the book. Okay, there are lots of parts. One of them, I'm not spoiling. There is a dialogue between Cirilo and Susana, the cousin. They are from Ireland. They are talking. And she is in love with her cousin. Okay. And then he says, oh, Susana, now I need so much to talk about you, about something with you. It's so important. And she inside is thinking, oh, he's going to reveal himself. And he says, I am in love. And she's like, oh. The maiden describes that she feels like her heart is racing. And she's like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. He's going to tell her. And he says, yes, I'm in love with Madalena. Melina describes Susana's feelings. She started hating Madalena from that moment. I'm gonna avenge in her thoughts. She didn't show it to me, but in her thoughts, she's like, I'm hating her. I'm gonna destroy her life. Blah 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 blah. Just like 16 centuries prior to that moment. Can you see what she's going to do? But it all began in feelings. That's why Felipe read this message written by Emmanuel, Inner Renewal. It says that renew your sentiments in accordance with the standards of the gospel. But Susana said, he's mine. Antero, the cousin who loves Madalena, says, she is mine. If you see the feelings, they are not choosing according to the divine laws. Because if Madalena and Cirilo are going to get married and they love each other, this is it. You don't. What does the divine law say? in one sentence. The major law, do to others what you would like to receive. You love God above everything, and the neighbor is yourself. So you do what you like to receive. Would you like to be married to this person, somebody else plots against you stealing that person? No. So then if Susanna was Christian, took that route, that's exactly what she did. Her, the force from, it's what we call, in English, Carol, anterioridade, how did we put it? Anteriority, right? It's a technical, yeah. It was a technical term that we have to borrow
And
for
I
this.
actually found the term
Exactly. Anteriority. It's all those experiences, it comes back because there is no redefinition. And then the guilt generated by choices guided by bad passions is simply a delay in the consultation up to the conscience, generating remorse and fear. So when we're guilty, it's because we consulted our conscience after the fact. Too late. How often do we do this? So it's inevitable. There is a relationship between responsibility and conscience. Insofar as responsibility takes hold of the spirit, there is light in one's conscience. This is Andreas. Responsibility is the foreshadowing of the noble conquest of the spirit. When responsibility manifests itself, this shows that conscience is active. When we see people that are completely irresponsible, it's because their consultation to their conscience is not happening. Okay? We can't cast a stone because we've been there, done that, and probably in some max we're still there. So, but we need to reflect. Okay, breathe, because we have a few more slides. I think it's a lot. There's more to come. There's a thunderstorm and torments we're going to talk about. So what happens? Every time I create thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, I imprint memories in my mental field. It stays there. You think it's archived. You feel it's there. Leon Denis says it quite clearly. There's nothing we feel, we say, we do, we think that is not recorded. And that's the problem. Because we think we're just thinking, and actually we're creating, co-creating. Kardec says in the book, The Genesis, he says, photography of our thoughts. He says, if you think of killing somebody, you're 50% halfway through it. Just thinking. How many people say, I'm going to kill, I hate. I say to Virginia, when you hear your friends saying, I hate, say, why don't you say just dislike? Because hatred is so poisonous. Words have power. So we need to change these habits. Because everything stays in the memory. Memory is so powerful. How do we go from where we are to Jesus' level? We ask, hey, Jesus, you have lived lives where before being Jesus, you were not perfect. So how did you make peace with yourself? And neuroscience responds today. And I studied in 2014 with veterans in the United States who developed post-traumatic stress disorder. They discovered something fantastic. that you can actually displace a bad memory by creating good memories. So the more good I do, I start making new sense of the things that I did in the past. I start creating a new scrapbook in my mental field. If you like scrapbooks, imagine. We go there and we tell the story from a different angle. I understand offenders and even myself as an offender from a different angle because I have new construction that overshadows this past. And then I make peace with myself. I'm able to shine God's light, be pure. It seems simple, but we know it's a lot of sweat and tears. So how do we renew this memory context? The renewing of memory contexts will not take place without the intense participation of the conscience, which by emitting an influx of moral values to the memory promotes conflicts, thus destabilizing morbid energies, adhere to mental images registered in the form of memories. Okay, we'll repeat this many times, don't worry. You know, it's like it's foreign today, tomorrow it's easier. But what is it saying? That if these memories are assessed by the light of the truth, it's as if there is, you know, when you use QuickBooks, you want to reconcile the accounts with the expense and everything. When you're doing that reconciliation, that's in our memory file. We take that memory, God's laws. Does it fit in? No. What happens? When the light of God's laws come, if the memory is not fitting according to the laws of God, I create an existential conflict, some form of inner conflict. So being in conflict is not bad. It's actually a good sign that we are checking, reconciling what we do, what we did with God's laws. When it does not match, conflict. Now we need to make a decision to get out of this conflict. So, how is somebody gonna get out of this torment, the wrongdoing, to get into doing right? Inevitably, conflicts were gonna happen. Our society on earth is currently very conflicted. If you compare 2,000 years ago, we were not so much conflicted. We were tormented. Read the books 2,000 years ago, 50 years later, Day of Christ. People would kill out of nothing and they excuse themselves. They're like, I was right, I should have done worse. That's how you were. Kidnap somebody else's baby, should have done even more. Today, we even think and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't look at myself in the mirror. That's why depression, anxiety, panic attacks are escalating. Signs that we are waking up. So it's not bad. It's good. Because then people didn't enter depression. They didn't enter anxiety. They would be killed, or kill themselves. There is no first choice. Kill, be killed, or kill ourselves. No conflict. When you develop conflict, after finding Jesus. So Jesus came and you're like, oh, I repent. I shouldn't have done it. But I'm still doing it. Right? So I do it, but I shouldn't do it. It's what we call personalism. This is in the Gospel according to Spiritism. We studied last Sunday. It's about this ego in us. All right? Personalism. The world's prejudices concerning what has conventionally been called the point of honor causes the somber susceptibility that is born from pride and the exaltation of personality, leading people to pay back injury for injury, offense for offense, in what seems like justice to those whose moral sense has not risen above the earthly passions. It's when somebody says you bought something at a restaurant, the person brought something else, and you're upset because in the past we were slave owners, and if you dare to do something wrong, we're no longer slave owners, but we're still thinking that people who are serving us were paying. How come? Are they deaf? They're not paying attention. They're so this, they're so that. Like, this is our ego destroying us. Where does this come from? When we feel like we're paying, people have to do it. And we humiliate people. And if we don't do it, we think. And do we feel good about it? No. Imagine if Jesus looked at us and was like, oh my gosh, you guys, you're so behind. He never did that. On the contrary, he was always stimulating us. He could see the next part of us. We need to train that in us, to see the best in others, even in ourselves. Now, our transgressions towards the divine law at first do not disturb us. Read this book. Susanna, the cousin, and Antero, the cousin, they're not bothered that they are feeling like we're going to avenge. Antero goes to the wedding and says she's going to be mine one day. He's transgressing the law and he's not bothered. How often we're like that. Our mental images, when we disturb the law, they are mental images that are charged by morbid pleasures. Morbid because they are wrong and because they come from conditionings of the past. We're repeating. For example, Susanna. Emmanuel says that the minute her cousin Cirilo revealed his love for Madalena, who, by the way, was Susanna's friend, and that's the strange part. She's friends with the woman until her cousin is interested, and Emmanuel says, the minute he said he's interested in somebody else, she always had this loving feeling for him, but Emmanuel says that for her, Cirilo became more handsome. So what is Susanna's theme in that life? We're going to talk about it. That morbid pleasure. He has to be mine. He can't be others, like spite. It's all about power. This systematic habit, dissociated from reason, generates torments, which is an alienated state of the thought. Meaning, we're crazy. We're out of reality. Alienated in the sense of mentally disturbed. Every time we are not according to God's laws, we are off, mentally disturbed. It's generating torment. So she can't sleep because she's thinking of her cousin. She doesn't want to eat because of her cousin. So it's a torment. Every torment reveals to us that we're missing a virtue or a value. Why can't we be happy for what people achieve? And rejoice. It's their turn, but when it's ours, we want people to rejoice. But when it's others, we don't want to rejoice. Isn't that funny? We want people to stop and be happy for us, but we don't want to be happy for other people. That's crazy. There's no reason, you see? It's nonsensical. Because if we put ourselves in other people's shoes, we'll say, I'll be happy for you. Even if I really love this person and this person loves that person, I'll be happy for them. But that's not love. Because if it were, she would not do what she would do. So it creates an instability of the personality. All the construction that is contrary to the good is unstable. So, you know, when we're craving stability and peace, we will only achieve it by being accordant to the law of God. For this reason, there is much instability within humanity. Because people pray to God, help me. But then they lie, they cheat, they kill, they betray, they steal, they do 10,000 things that are wrong, kill, blah, blah, blah. The instability in the personality and emotional instability are directly related to the construction of these emotions, which are unstable in us. So, makes sense, right? Is Susanna happy? Never. She's never happy. If you see, she's always like anxious. She's always like, now they have a plague. There's a moment in the book. All of these books by Emmanuel, different times, talk about the pandemics, epidemics. You think it's only COVID? No, it has always been. And how people dealt with it. Even in the midst of that illness spreading in France, Susanna and Antero are plotting against the very people they love and their happiness. People are dying in front of them and they're creating a plot. Think about it in our lives. The pandemic happened, and there are people now, during the pandemic, they're saying, God, I will help the world if I survive. We reached the past pandemic, and what are they doing now? Traveling. They forgot their promise. They were just bargaining with God like a child. But they forget that their promise was to themselves. So now there's an inner filter, and it's like a bomb that is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. And one time it's going to explode. And it's going to create a commotion in us because we forgot what we promised ourselves before God. The instability is immense. We're entering another phase in our evolution. This phase has led us to the reflection upon our divine constitution. So the last 3 slides will focus on identifying our torments. How were we usually before reincarnating? Tormented, majority of us. Some had the opportunity to go to a spiritual colony, study, get out of that tormented mindset and reincarnate. Many had no time to do this filtering and straight in. And you can easily recognize in children. These children, they can't sit still. They can't sit still. They were tormented and straight to reincarnation, prepared by the spirits, but they didn't go to the spiritual colonies, did courses, did therapy. Straight in, they can't sit still. They can't. So what does that mean for parents? work on this child even more now. And the earlier the better. They need to learn to sit still. Many people here, and I'm going to say this because I know what it is to have a child. Carlos does too. And we had Virginia right in this center. The whole pregnancy, the whole babyhood. She came as early as 3 weeks, never left. She used to be seated next to Carlos. And people would not know she was here. Because she would be still, and she knew from me and Carlos that she couldn't make a noise. She goes to school, asks their teachers, do they have a problem? No. I can't create monsters for society, right? When parents are like, oh, I shouldn't have said, you say no. Because then they're going to be a menace in society. And then you're destroying society with your child. Is it easy? I know it's not. Because the legacy continues for all of us. But they need to sit. Now it's harder even for her. Now it's harder to sit still during the prayer, perhaps especially, right? Mm-hmm. They used to be quiet and still, closing their eyes. And now it's like, because right? We talk at home, come back, no tablet for a week, and then close her eyes during the fast. It's going to be story later for her to tell others, right? When we were little, parents said otherwise. But we need to get out of this torment because now they are waking up. We get closer to teen years. Things start popping up. It's a new phase. The tribe needs to help. Right? To say, I understand these impulses, but we can't go there. So let's talk about these torments in us. The absence of moral values, of the truth, and of experiencing the good established torment. So our torments will happen, it's the inner storms, when we have not yet become virtuous in a certain way, or we also don't know the truth, and don't have experience in the good. So that's why when people say, I want to get out of this torment, start helping others. Because in that movement, even if you have to do it and you don't want to do it, in that movement, we start collecting new memories that are going to counterbalance the guilt, the wrongdoings. The more good we do, more counterbalance till we shift the game. Get out of torment. Regeneration. So, torment. Every torment, without exception, is an addictive pattern or an addictive thought, and all addictions grow from inertia, meaning laziness. So the greatest enemy is laziness. When our children come to us and say, I'm afraid to die. It's very common nowadays. They're afraid of dying. They're afraid that the parents die. They're afraid of the pets dying, etc. What is it? We need more construction in the good. Bring them. Let's do more sandwiches for the shelter. Let's pray for those friends in school that you dislike. It's okay to dislike, as long as we make effort to like. It's just a transition. But we need to pray for the people. We need to forgive, because they start accumulating those things, and here comes torment. So we need our addictions come from our inertia. We'll never see anybody smoking pot if they are really engaged in duty. It's only when you are off duty that you do that. Recreational drugs, alcohol. Because if we are dutiful, no time. No time. The virtue of, this is in the Gospel according to Spiritism, that the Spirit say, the virtue of your generation is intellectual activity, its vice is moral indifference. Let's think about this, because many things that are important are being left aside, and there is no vice without inertia, without laziness. So if we want to get out of bad habits, we need to become more useful. Some people are like, how do I stop smoking? Start helping people. Instead of putting a cigarette here, type in, provide good information for people on social media. Every time you want to drink, go help somebody who is at a shelter. Write a good story. Draw something that's going to make somebody happy. Talking about torments, the established vice becomes also a torment. So, is there a solution? Of course. We are immersed within the divine law. But when we want to experience certain things outside of the law, we encapsulate ourselves and begin to live in a parallel reality that is called torment. It's like mental alienation. You see all these books 2,000 years ago, 50 years later, Hail Christ, Denunciation, all the villains, to summarize, all the villains ended up mad, mentally ill. Either killed themselves or were killed in deep torment. Tragic ways. They did all the bad deeds possible. The end of their lives was pure tragedy. Because we think, yeah, I can do it. Yes, you can, but remember, for every action, there's a reaction. We encapsulate ourselves so that the law does not disturb us. We say. Some people told the other day, it's not good to learn too much, because then you'll be guiltier later. It's a twisted thought, huh? Oh, really? It says if I say to somebody, don't read what's written here. Don't read this. You already read it. You read it. When I say I'm not going to get to know more because if I do, I'll be guilty, they already know what they're talking about. And they're saying, I don't want people to keep reminding me of this. But they already know. And they think by escaping, they are buffering, but we're not. If the spirit does not have the habit to actually to reflect, to consult their conscience, if the spirit does not have inbuilt values, virtues, if they do not develop in their inner recesses feelings, sentiments that prevent the manifestation of prior tendencies, torments will prevail. That's when people say they don't get out of their addictions, the bad habits. Why? But they don't know what else to do. Why are you going to stop drinking? There must be a reason. Because we understand it can be fun. But the aftermath, if we don't ponder the consequences, we won't be able to get out of it. Every time we studied in Life and Sex, and every time we have a sexual relationship with someone, we form a fluid connection. So this thing nowadays, I'm a woman, because men used to do it, now it's us, right? I will do the same just because whomever, one today, another tomorrow. Always That torment will lead us to mental imbalance. Schizophrenia is one of them. The natural byproduct of sexual addictions, mental illnesses. Andre Lewis in Sex and Destiny, Manual in the book, Life and Sex, repeat that time and again. It's impossible not to become mentally imbalanced if we keep cherishing this sexual misconduct. It's a torment. To wrap up, Amen. It tells us the story. The importance of building true feelings. Emotion is one thing. Emotions are very instinctive. Feelings are the construction of our reasoning over the marble of our feelings. So he says, as feelings develop, the spiritual being proceeds in stabilizing itself. So we become more stable. So sometimes we're hectic because we want to be loved instead of loving. Start loving people. Life becomes more stable. Jealousy disappears. Envy. Lots of relationship emotions will disappear. The personality begins minimizing itself, ego, and its inner construction becomes more solid and more stable. The spiritual being goes on illuminating itself, and the spiritual being rises, leaving behind its badly constructed vibrations. The constructions of feelings begin when we think of something beyond ourselves. That's the secret. We won't have true construction if we don't forget ourselves. That's why we feel so weak. Because we're always like, me, my mind. It's very weak. The minute I wake up thinking about others, creating those feelings of altruism, I put myself in a secondary position, and in truth, the thought is the cause of the action, but the feeling is the vibratory mode through which thought and cause shape themselves. As we feel, we mold the idea. Amen. Okay, a lot of things for us to meditate. That's why we need to reflect on this and think of these characters in the book that are showing to us why we suffer. Because like Susanna, she didn't show her anger. She was very polite. She sees Madalena sick, almost dying. She goes to the priest and says, she died. She didn't. But proclaimed her death so she would find a way to steal Madalena's husband. For society, she was polite, so cute, from a good family, wealthy. Even Madalena didn't know that her friend was not a friend. If we are like this in a spiritist, we're in trouble. If we're at that level, so we need to stay. I'm going to turn off saying thank you, friends. See you next time.